A quick disclaimer. This podcast contains harsh language and content that some viewers may find scary or disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Dark Corners of Reddit podcast. Every week, I will be narrating Let's Not Meet, paranormal, and other creepy stories from the horror forums of Reddit. I'm Bleak. This week's episode contains stories about an escape with an encore, the fate of a jogger, and other tales of terror. So without further ado, let's turn down the lights and go to our corner. Our first story is called Online Stalker Thinks I Stole Her Fictional Boyfriend, Demands Friendship and Payment for Her Suffering, by Reddit user foxgotsocks. This is quite long, but hopefully not too bad considering this wackiness has been going on for over 10 years. First things first, got to rip the band-aid off and admit that from late 2001 to mid-2003 when I was a teenager, I wrote fanfiction and posted it online. My stories weren't that great, but I made friends because I posted them, so I don't regret doing it. After I stopped posting stories, I was still active online and instead posted fan art and dumb stuff about roleplays I did with my buddies over on DeviantArt. Cringe. Maybe I sound like a lame fangirl, but whatever. I was having fun. Fast forward to 2008, when I got a PM on DeviantArt that was, well, I wasn't really expecting online life to take such a strange turn on that particular random day, but the writer, Ari, began her missive by informing me, a complete stranger, that she was seriously mentally ill. She listed a wide variety of disorders, including schizophrenia, which had tormented her all of her life. Then she said that she was scared to write to me like this, but that she had to do it so that she could move on. Move on from what, you ask? From her hatred of me, of course. Ari wrote that she had hated me for a long time, based on the fanfiction I wrote, because my stories terrified her. Okay, let's be clear here. I wrote stories about characters from cartoons and one comic book. One of the characters from that comic was a violent and terrible person, and I wrote him as such. But that's not what was scaring her. No. Ari was scared because she was in love with said character, John, and believed that they were destined for each other, and he talked to her in her head. And then she read my fan fiction, and suddenly John stopped talking to her, and she knew it was because he was talking to me instead. She was absolutely certain that I had stolen her true love away from her. She said that after that, she developed a belief that I was the arbiter of her reality. That is a direct quote, and I will never forget that phrase. And that I was capable of reaching into her mind, and not only reading, but taking away her precious thoughts. This caused her so much anguish and suffering. However, she went on that deep down she knew that this was a delusion caused by her mental illness. Ari closed her PM by begging me to respond to her, to confirm that I was just a normal girl, so that she could get past the trauma I had caused her and be happy again. Now I have to again rip off a band-aid of inviting judgment here by admitting that sometimes I am a complete dumbass. I am also a soft-hearted person, and the idea that someone could have been harmed by the goofy crap stories I'd posted years earlier made me kinda sad. So I did a soft-hearted, but ultimately dumbass thing, and responded. It went something like, yes, I was a normal teenage girl when I posted that stuff, and now I'm a normal early 20s woman with no mind-stealing superpowers. Also, I don't know you, and I had no idea you existed until you sent me this, so how could I have singled you out to hurt you with my fanfics? Please don't worry about me. And I thought, what kind of person am I? And then I thought that this would surely be the end of it. Wrong. Ari replied to me, using a different, upbeat and cheerful tone, saying that she was so glad that I wrote back to her because now she knew that she didn't have to fear me and that we could just be friends. She loved my fanfics, honestly. And by the way, what's my real name so that she could find me on Facebook? Excuse me? No, a dumbass I may be, but I ain't that stupid. I told her I didn't have a Facebook, a lie, and that I was busy with school, a truth, so that I wouldn't be on Deviant a whole lot, a half-truth. But I wished her good luck with her mental health recovery and hoped that she would have a good life, a truth. I mean, so far she just seemed troubled and weird, but I wouldn't have wished harm on her. I didn't get a response to that, but a few months later, I got a DeviantArt PM from another account that I didn't know that simply asked, "Hey, foxgotsocks, how do you get your characters to talk for you?" Now, I hadn't posted any fanfiction for years, but I was still participating in fandom and talked online about writing, and I honestly thought this question was about writing, specifically dialogue. I mulled over how to respond and ended up not answering right away. I went back to my PMs a few days later and saw that I had another new message. This one saying, with a lot of exclamation points and cry-typing style misspellings, that I had to answer and teach this stranger how to talk to my characters, and that I didn't know how long this user had been suffering because of me. Oh my goodness, I wonder who it was using another account. And guess what? I was still a goddamn dumbass. So I answered the first message, but sort of detached-like, ignoring the desperation of the second message, and just was kind of giving tips for how to learn a character's voice and how to write dialogue for them. Once again, I got a very chipper reply, including a confession that yeah, it was Ari, and that she just loved talking to me. She thought I was so nice and such a good friend to be patient with her. And now I could answer all of her burning questions about how to talk to, specifically, my characters. Because you see, she had realized that she was not just in love with John, but with my John from my stupid fanfiction. And now she could talk to him anytime because we were friends. I got the idea that she was not asking to roleplay and instead thought that she would be able to communicate directly with this once-removed fictional character now. But I feigned ignorance and said something like, our RP group is kind of private and not accepting new members, but I hope I answered your question and please have a good day. Because see, I didn't really want to be friends with someone who A, seemed to believe that I was somehow responsible for her mental illness/health, despite not knowing her and only having spoken to her twice, and B, had already told me once that she hated me and thought that I could control her reality. On the kinder side of things, I honestly didn't think continuing to converse would be good for either of our comforts. On the meaner side, I just really didn't want to interact with this person anymore and felt that I had already done more than enough to help this stranger. Okay, so she stopped responding to me, and I thought this strange interlude of my life was over. Wrong. Now fast forward 7 entire years to early July of 2015, at which time I had moved my main online presence to Tumblr. I'd left a note on my DeviantArt account in 2011 when I moved, giving my new Tumblr screen name so my fandom buddies could find me easier. At this point, I had not posted any fanfiction for over a decade. I was also not talking much at all online about John, except to reblog the occasional post someone else made about the comic he was from, as you do on Tumblr, when suddenly I received an anonymous ask. And that ask said in no uncertain terms that I was the cause of the asker's suffering, because I had callously disregarded others' feelings. It closed with some kind of weird threat. I can't remember exactly what now because I instinctively deleted the ask due to being unnerved. I guess that it could be Ari based on the typing style and the fact that there couldn't be two people in the world who thought that I make them suffer, right? But it had been 7 years, so I wasn't entirely sure. And then I did yet another dumbass thing. I made a post that said something along the lines of, "To the Anon that just sent me a vaguely threatening ask. Sorry if anything I posted has upset you. Please let me know if I can tag my post a certain way so you can block whatever content you find distressing." A couple days later, I got another Anon ask calling me a prattling, ostentatious idiot. Direct quote, and saying it doesn't really work that way and strong emotions cannot just be blocked. The message went on, "You stole him away from me and I've been living in turmoil since you don't care." Ah, yes. Definitely Ari. There was no question about it. After all, I hadn't stolen anyone else's fictional boyfriend that I know of. I turned off anonymous asks. I also went back to my old, untouched DeviantArt account, where I found a comment on my front page from yet a third account that said, "If you still talk to him, tell him that I love him and that I always will. He was the first man I ever loved, and it was your version of him I loved above all. I've been jealous, angry at you, angry at myself, depressed, and psychotic. I tore myself to shreds over him and my heart aches and cries. The first cut is the deepest. I love you, John. The date on the message was June 28th, 2015, just a few days before the first Anon asked me on Tumblr. I did a little internet sleuthing, just a simple Google of Ari's known usernames, and found her for Affinity account where she had posted screeds in her journal about hating anyone else who wrote or drew anything about John. Okay. I also discovered through this Google search that I was not completely special in triggering Ari's ire, and that she had also gone after another person on Tumblr in much the same way, demanding answers to emotionally charged asks, assuming friendships when there wasn't any, and then stalking the person using multiple accounts and email addresses and accusing them of harming her. This other person had amassed a collection of screenshots of Ari's behavior, and it was really super not good. Anyway, I figured since I'd blocked Anon asks, maybe she'd just go away. Wrong. Ari's next wave of stuff began in 2016, when someone started reblogging my personal text posts with cryptic comments like, "You have a beautiful soul." The username was nothing like Ari or any of the other account names she'd used before, so I just thought someone was being socially awkward. But after a few months of this, I received a message from this account through Tumblr's chat function that let the cat out of the bag. This person said something like, "I'm a British female creature with insert some litany of mental illnesses from Ari's first PM in 2008, and I'm so scared of dying alone and friendless. I used to read your fanfiction, and it always made me feel better. I think you're an amazing woman, and would like to get to know you better. Please, I'm begging you, don't leave me alone in the dark." Well, this sure sounded a lot like Ari to me. This was confirmed when I went to the person's Tumblr and saw that they had recently posted something passive-aggressive about that other Tumblr user that Ari was known to stalk. And if that wasn't enough, they also had a lot of weird, innuendo-laden posts about John and a couple of other characters, including Sherlock and a man that I didn't recognize, who they claimed to have legally married. It was at that point that I finally decided to stop being a soft-hearted dumbass. I blocked the account that sent me the chat message right away without responding. Over the next several months, Ari attempted to contact others on Tumblr who it was obvious I talked to a lot. My girlfriend, our best friend, etc. She sent them chat messages like the one paraphrased above, hilarious in the case of my girlfriend, who never wrote any fanfiction, begging for their friendship, and also, just casually asking what I was doing, whether or not they could get me to talk to her, that sort of thing. I know my girlfriend and best friend blocked her too after they asked me who the hell this person was, and so I told them the story. I also discovered on Tumblr that you can choose an option to allow chat messages only from people you follow. With that account blocked and no one I don't know being able to follow me and send me chat messages, I naively thought again that surely this weird nonsense would end. Wrong. See, the thing about Tumblr, if you're not familiar with the website, is that if you block someone, they just can't interact with your post or follow you. A block causes someone to auto-unfollow you, and they won't be able to see your posts on their dash. They also won't be able to send you asks. However, they can still go to your actual blog and see everything you post. If they try to interact with any of your posts on your blog, reply, reblog, like, they won't be able to, which will, of course, tip them off that you blocked them. Beginning in 2018, Ari engaged in a whirlwind of activity. She made a new account, sent me an ask, or 15, saying things varying from, "Please talk to me, I'm harmless, you don't know how hard it is to be me," to, "I'm so scared of the darkness," to, "Humans are social animals and I'm dying without you," to, "I guess you like psychos like John, but can't handle a real psycho like me," to, "I just want to kidnap you far away and have a happy ending, my darling." So I blocked that account immediately. She made a new account and reblogged some post I made a while back about John's comic book with a comment like, "My first love, the first cut is the deepest," before sending me multiple asks, all saying, "You stole him from me." So I blocked that account immediately. She made another one, made some meme generator sparkly pictures of rats and spiders with texts like, "I just want to sit next to you and be your friend. I'm not scary," and posted them with @my username so this mention would show up on my Dash's activity feed. So I blocked that account. She made a new account and posted a quote from my favorite author, well-known info, I post about him frequently, and sent me a couple asks saying that this author would disagree with how I was treating her by continuing to block her and shun her friendship when she was harmless and just thought that I was an amazing person. So I blocked that account. Mate, did you forget you called me a prattling, ostentatious idiot and threatened me? Because I sure didn't. This went on for 10 accounts, one of which had the blog title in huge letters at the top. Hello, my nickname reserved only for close friends. One of which she inundated with photos of herself glaring at the camera. My first looks at her face, and I don't like to judge people on appearance, but this girl had a really creepy glare, and she looked like she hadn't showered in weeks, adding me in each one. She only ever used one of these accounts to actually post, reblog, and like things from other people like a seemingly normal user, albeit one who made some questionable comments sometimes. All the rest only existed to bother me. I started trying to report her to Tumblr after the third or fourth time for making multiple accounts solely to evade my blocks, but if you know anything about Tumblr, you can guess that they didn't respond with more than an automated, "Okay, we'll look into this. In the meantime, have you tried blocking this user?" Anyway, throughout 2018, I just had to deal with the fact that anytime I saw a little red flag above my ask box icon, it would probably be something creepy and either threatening or passive-aggressive from Ari that would put me on the edge for a few hours and remind me that no matter what I did on Tumblr, she could read everything I posted. I haven't gotten anything from her so far in 2019, but I figure as long as she's out there, there's always a chance she'll come back. Maybe not right away, maybe not until another 10 years from now, but let me just say, Ari, you fucking weirdo, I'm genuinely sorry about your mental illnesses and hope you get help for them, but while they may explain some of your behavior, they don't excuse it. I'm not and never will be your friend because you are not harmless. You made me heavily curtail my social interaction on Tumblr by cutting off a couple methods of communication that could have been used to make new friends. You made me worried about ever talking there about a comic I enjoy. You made it so that every time I have an ask, my heart rate goes up because it might be more of your disturbing bullshit. You've harassed my loved ones and also strangers who probably didn't do anything to deserve it. I don't control your reality, but if I did, you can bet that I'd use that power to ensure we would never meet again. Our next story is called The 4 a.m. Jogger by Reddit user mangogurl. This happened around 2016, when I was still with my ex back in New Jersey. He lived right by a bus stop where I'd frequently park my car and take buses to and from New York City. What's unfortunate is that the later it was in the night, the longer time gaps were between pickups. I went out with some friends one night and decided to catch the last bus back to New Jersey at 3:30 a.m. About a couple stops in, I was so tired that I fell asleep and missed my stop. I didn't think it was a big deal because I woke up only one stop after mine. It was about 5 blocks away, but blocks in New Jersey are not like New York City blocks at all. They're far away from each other, so overall, it was about a good 10-15 minute walk. 2 blocks in, I saw a jogger on the other side of the street from me. I remember thinking to myself, what a weird time to be taking a jog. It was 4 a.m., but suburb people take jogs at crazy hours. He was a bit further up, so he definitely couldn't see me, but here's when shit turned creepy. I noticed him jogging and running up to a house. I felt relieved because I thought that he was walking up to his house, but of course I was wrong. He stopped right in front of the window in the middle of the front lawn of the house and jogged in place for about 30 seconds. Can you picture that? A guy looking into the front window of a house just jogging in place. Freaky or no? And within those 30 seconds, he dropped his water bottle and picked it up 3 times. He then would jog to the next house and do the same exact thing. Jog in place, drop his water bottle, and pick it up exactly 3 times. Yeah, at this point, I was freaked the fuck out and sober from the adrenaline. I kept it cool and continued to walk behind him on the other side of the street. A few seconds later, he turned around and looked directly at me. I froze, but before I could say anything, he ran off to make the next right into the next block ahead of him. I was so confused and sweating from fear, but I was only 3 blocks away, so I had to keep going. As I was passing the block he made the right on, I peeped over to see if he was there, and turns out he was doing the same jogging in place / dropping water bottle 3 times thing on all of the houses on that street. So then I knew that there was definitely something not right with this guy. I started power walking/jogging towards my ex's house. 2 blocks away, I felt like something was telling me to turn around. When I did, I saw him. He was jogging on the same side of the street as me, but behind me now. As soon as I turned around, he ducked off to hide behind a bush. That's when I lost it and ran for my life. I made the left onto my ex's block and hopped directly into my car and locked the doors. I leaned my seat all the way back and laid there for what felt like the longest 30 seconds of my life. I had to catch my breath. My ex living on a short, dead-end block also intensified my anxiety, along with the fact that this psycho could pretty much break through my windows at any minute. I decided that I was going to drive to my parents' home because I couldn't risk this guy knowing where my ex lived and put him, our dog, and me in danger. So I started my engine and made a K-turn off of the block. As soon as I got to the end to make a left back onto the main road, I saw him. Standing in the middle of the road, he was smiling this creepy grin, staring straight at me. I continued to take a left, and while I passed him, this creep bent down to my window level and smiled and waved at me with the same creepy grin. A week or so later, there was some news that a lot of rapes had been happening at bus stops in that town. Sheesh. I don't know exactly what this guy had in mind, but it seemed like he had some crazy thoughts about me during his jog. And what's the deal with his invasive jogging routine while staring into people's homes? So, creepy 4 a.m. jogger, let's not ever meet again. Our next story is titled, My Nmom's Born-Again Boyfriend, by Reddit user Melodic Innocent. For some background, my Nmom dated this guy for about 12 years. He used to be really cool, but as is the case for many men who date mothers, he stopped caring about us when we stopped being cute little kids and started becoming teens and adults. Ryan was a paralegal and was a pretty classy guy, at least it seemed that way when I was a kid. He wore polo shirts and khakis and always took us out cool places, but as I mentioned before, he stopped caring about me and my brother once we grew up a bit. I had never liked her boyfriend, to be honest, but back then I didn't have a reason. Once he moved in with my mom, there was a lot of, you shouldn't wear that, you eat too much, I don't want you talking to people on the internet. Nothing too bad, but clearly becoming very judgmental and trying to be my father, despite the fact that I never saw him as such. But it gets weirder, I promise. One day we drove by a church and he said, "We should start sending you kids to church so that you can learn about the love of God." My brother was excited because he thought that it would be just like this religious summer camp that our mom accidentally sent us to because she didn't bother to research the camp. But I said no thanks. Being 13 at the time, I had learned and thought about religion and decided it wasn't for me. I didn't share many of the common opinions with many Christians and Catholics because from my experience, they were pretty anti-gay. He huffed and we continued on. Another day, we were at home, and he was trying to convince me to pray before bed every night. I again declined. More and more instances went on, and they started progressing. Any kids program I watched, he would stop on me and start telling me that the Illuminati was hypnotizing me into being sexual and sinful. He'd remind me daily that I was going to hell, and I couldn't listen to any music in peace because he'd start talking about the Freemasons or whatever. At that time, my Nmom's mental health issues were spinning out of control. She was seeing shadow people. He was telling her that she was possessed by demons, and they fought because it was basically a fight between God and Satan to him. During this, my Nmom cheated on him with his cousin. Because she was stupid, it hadn't dumped him yet, and he freaked out. I woke up to him yelling at every house in our little cul-de-sac, telling whoever was listening that she was a cheating whore, Satan possessed her, and now God would never forgive her. Now, my Nmom is a pathological liar, so I have no idea how true the next part is, but one day, she came home saying that while she was at the bar, she saw Ryan, and he supposedly beat her up, sexually assaulted her, all while Ryan's mom was watching. My Nmom never contacted the authorities about it, but she sought comfort from his cousin. He started commenting on her Facebook stuff, being an absolute knob, and I called him out on it and told him to shut the fuck up. He was telling me that he just wanted to cleanse the unholiness from us and be a family again. Fast forward a bit and I moved out. I was so done with my Nmom's drama, but Ryan's house was right on my work commute route. At about 10:30, I was walking home and I saw someone rollerblading. Cool, whatever. He passed by me and it was fucking Ryan. I panicked. He just smiled at me as he rolled backwards so that he could just stare at me. He didn't say anything, he just kept passing me and going down the streets parallel from me. He started following me, so I started running the rest of the way home. The next day, I walked to school with my boyfriend, and there was a note pinned to a pole with my name on it. It basically said, "I love you like a daughter, I miss you, I raised you, let's be a family again." Real fucking creepy. Fast forward one more time, and he came to my work. I ran to the back so I didn't have to see or serve him, and my coworker came around back shortly after. "There's a guy out there who says he knows you, told me to give you this." And she dropped $23 worth of change into my hands. I never called the police, but I haven't seen him since, so I didn't really feel like it was necessary, but in hindsight, I wish I had just to get him into trouble. Ryan, you may think that you were like a father to me, but I'd be way happier if we never met again. Our fourth and final story is called Almost Kidnapped Twice by Reddit user constantlyirritable. Longtime reader, first-time poster. This happened to me and a friend back in 2012, and it was really terrifying both times. For starters, where I live is top 10 in the US for sex trafficking, so kidnappings happen a lot. Number 1. So this was a couple years back. Me and my best friend decided to take a walk down the road to relax around 9 at night. We were both 20 at the time, and both had athletic builds. We were walking to the Kangaroo to grab a slushie, and then walk back home. Overall, it would have been about an hour-and-a-half trip. Where we were wasn't in the middle of nowhere, but it wasn't in the city either. We were about halfway there when this big lifted truck drove by us. It then came back the opposite way 5 minutes later. My friend said that that's the second time the truck had driven by us and that he felt uneasy. Not even 2 minutes later, the truck came by again, speeding this time. My friend yelled at me to hide, and thankfully, we were right in front of a person's house. We jumped behind some bushes and tried to be as quiet as possible. The truck had stopped, and some really country-sounding guys in their 30s hopped out. We heard them asking where we went and to find us. We stayed still for about 7 minutes, and then they said, "Forget it, let's get out of here." We then waited for the truck to disappear, and we knocked vigorously on the person's door. They answered, and we explained what had just happened, and if we could get a ride back home. Thankfully, they were nice, and did as we asked. Number 2. So same friend and I went on another walk, about 2 months later, but not as far out. Around the same time, though. We walked to the Food Lion near my old high school and back. On our way back, another big lifted truck was speeding down this back road and ran us off the road. I yelled at them and flipped them off, and the truck screeched to a stop. Helping my friend up, I saw 4 people in their 20s to early 30s get out. This time, they had some shotguns. They started running at us yelling, "Don't even think about running." Naturally, we sprinted and jumped the school's gate and ran across the practice football field until we reached our car on the other side. Frantically trying to get in, we hear them yelling at us to come back. We then floored it home and made sure we weren't followed. That was the last walk we took together, for obvious reasons. So to the abductors who wanted God knows what, let's never meet. Thank you so much for listening to the 3rd episode of the Dark Corners of Reddit podcast. I have gotten a lot of positive feedback from some listeners, and I'm pleased with the tips that I've received about editing. This includes a noise gate, among other fancy things that I've picked up in the past week. The goal is to give you, the listener, the best experience possible when tuning into this podcast. Of course, I'm always learning and adapting to make this the best production possible. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can show your support by giving it a good rating on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, or on your go-to podcast directory. Visit me at darkcornersofreddit.com. If you have any tips, suggestions, or you just want to shoot the shit, you can email me at bleak@darkcornersofreddit.com, Facebook at facebook.com/darkreddit, and Twitter at darkreddit. Music from today's episode came from purpleplanet.com, a great source of free media for podcasts, YouTube videos, and blogs. You can find a credit link in the description. The Redditors that graciously allowed me to narrate their stories will be formally listed in the description as well. New episodes of the Dark Corners of Reddit will be released every Thursday. I'll see you next week in the corner. Until then, Sleep safe.